Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 2 of this mini-series of What If Mike Huckabee was Republican nominee in 2008. And already, this series, in just one video, has a lot of likes, a lot of support. You guys actually like this series. So, I'm going to continue it. We're going to have a video for every 2 years. So, this video, I should say, will be on the 2010 election and what the differences would be in this scenario versus our timeline. And yes, if you guys do enjoy these videos, hit the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow me on Twitter, and hit that join button for some special perks. And yes, so 2010, alright, is an election that could have went completely worse than it did for the Democrats. People seemingly forgot. A lot of these races, alright, Republicans should have won, but still, they were just completely dead from the 2008 race, right? 2008 still had to carry over to 2010, as Republicans got annihilated so badly in 2008 in our timeline that they really couldn't recover that well in 2010. They still recovered pretty well. They got 242 House seats, but it should have been a lot better than it was. Right, and in this timeline, with Mike Huckabee being the nominee, Republicans, again, would have done a lot better in the year 2008 across the board. They wouldn't have won any elections, right, but they wouldn't have gotten beaten so badly, right, because 2008 was just a complete disaster, if you remember for the first video. So Huckabee in this timeline, remember, he would win North Carolina, he would win Indiana, unlike John McCain was not able to, and do a little better in places like Florida, Ohio. And this is key, because since Huckabee did not do so bad in a lot of these states, it would have been a lot easier time for the Republicans, in particular the Tea Party candidates, to run and do a lot better. Because if you remember, the Tea Party, 2010 was the Tea Party year, alright? And you look at this, Tea Party on the ballot, right? 129 Republicans that were pretty much Tea Party members. Look at this. Look at the amount of flips that the Tea Party alone did, right? 33 flips. Just from the Tea Party. That's crazy, right? And this is key, right? Because in a lot of these races, you notice, Republicans that were Tea Party member only lost by a percentage point. Only lost by only 3, etc. Only lost by 4, right? Etc., etc., etc. Alright? This should have been a lot worse for the Democrats, alright? Across the board. But again, the fallout from 2008 still carried over to 2010. Alright? So in this timeline, this is what the map is, right? In our timeline. Now, compare that to the map I created in this timeline. In a nutshell, what this map is simple. The dark red, right? The dark red color is a seats Republicans won in our timeline. Alright? Yes, I messed up probably 1 or 2 districts. Give me a break. The dark blue counties are the counties that Democrats won in our timeline. But the light red counties, right? Except Nebraska's 3rd. I don't know why that is. Except the light red counties, or districts, these are the flips the Republicans would get in our timeline, alright? And you notice that Republicans would do a lot better in this part of the nation, alright? Mostly the North, alright? And a little bit of the West. That's going to be key for the 2012 election, alright? Very important election. But you get the point. So, Republicans in this timeline would have 262 House seats. Compare that to 242. That's a big difference. 40 extra seats. And a lot of these House seats, you look at, again, at the Tea Party, a lot of these seats are in counties or districts that the Tea Party ran candidates in. And they really got slogged down by the incompetence of the Republican Party in 2008. So remember, since 2008, we had Mike Huckabee, who was a bit more populist, right? Not full-on Trump populist, but you look at the political tests, and he was more populist on the economic scale than John McCain was. So you would have seen a lot more of that Tea Party movement. in 2010 in a stronger Republican Party. And really, this would have been a complete disaster for the Democrats because you lost so many House seats. But that's not what's important here, all right? Republicans would have done significantly better in the House if it wasn't for the disaster of 2008, no matter what. The Senate is key. Now, you go back to 2008. This was a complete failure for the Republicans. And again, I blame mostly McCain for this. If McCain was not on the ballot, again, if it was Mike Huckabee, a lot of these races Republicans would have won, right? For example, you go to Oregon. It would have been a stretch, but I do believe Gordon Smith would have won. You looked at it and just, McCain just dragged down just these Republicans down ballot way too much. Ted Stevens would have won. And Al Franken would have not won in Minnesota. Yes, this map says he won, but that was before the garbage that happened. And you see a lot of these races. Republicans would have won a lot more seats in 2008, right, for the Senate. And it wouldn't have been such a disaster, right? And they would have probably even won Louisiana. Because with Mike Huckabee, Republicans would have done a lot better in the Deep South. That's just a fact. He's from Arkansas, and he would have had a lot better appeal than McCain did. Even though McCain did a lot better than Bush did in this part of the nation, he still would have not have done as well as Mike Huckabee. So, what will change for the Senate? Well, this is what the Senate map looked like after our timeline's 2010 elections, right? You look at the Senate here, map right here, and Republicans did pretty good, right? And again, some of these numbers are not perfect because you had the Alaska being actually Republican because Murkowski was actually Republican. Massachusetts didn't have their special election yet, and you get the point, all right? So Republicans would have done this is what the Republicans did in our timeline, right? They had around 47 Senate seats. Democrats had around 53 when you count the two independents, Bernie Sanders and I'm not going to mention his name, from Connecticut because he's bad. So yes, this is what the Senate map looked like in our timeline, right? And you go back to 2010. Look at places like Colorado. Look at places like Washington even. Right? And you just keep looking, you find that, hey, Republicans should have done a lot better in 2010 because they almost upseated Michael Bennet, or they almost won. They almost flipped Washington, and they did pretty good across the board. But again, you look back at it, in 2008 still just dragged them down, right? And this timeline, since Republicans didn't do so bad in 2008, and the fact that Obama in our timeline wouldn't have done as much, since Republicans still would have done a lot better, and they would have been able to filibuster more of the stuff that Obama wanted to do, his popularity would be a lot lower in our timeline, and you would have seen a massive shift in the Senate. So, this is what the Senate map was on our timeline. In this timeline, Republicans would have flipped the Senate, in my opinion. You see a lot of these flips, and they're not unreasonable. You look at it, and a lot of these flips, Republicans would have had Colorado. Would have probably, maybe not Washington, but they definitely would have had, in 2008, they would have had Oregon, I believe. They would have had Minnesota. They would have had Louisiana, etc. Right? So this is what the Senate map would look like on our timeline. So Republicans have a majority in the Senate and a borderline supermajority in the House. So Obama's basically useless at this point. So it's pretty much 2014, but 4 years earlier. This is key, because pretty much Obama can't do anything at this point, right? He basically can't pass Obamacare since the Democratic majority in the House would be smaller, in the Senate, and a lot of Democrats would break against it. And really, it's one of those elections where it would have just been a disaster for the Democrats. Alright? But there's one more thing we have to talk about, and that's the governor races. And you look at the governor elections in 2010, dear God, Democrats got lucky. Minnesota, Illinois, Oregon, and even places like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts even. And you look and just, Democrats got extremely lucky that Obama was still a fairly popular president this time, right? But again, in this timeline, Republicans would have been way more unified, and again, the aftermath of 2008 wasn't as bad, right? So you check the governor's election, this is what I predict the governor's map would look like. Republicans would have flipped 6 more governor elections, and this is important for redistricting, for future elections, for future trends, etc. This would help the Republicans big time. Because places like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Illinois, they would get more Republican. And this is important for the 2012 election, which we're going to get into in the next video. So as you can tell, Democrats got pretty freaking lucky that the Republicans were just in complete disarray after the 2008 election, right? Yes, they won the House, but again, it should have been 260 House seats, and they should have won the Senate, right? But they didn't. And yes, this is what my prediction would have been. Republicans would have done significantly better across the board, and this would be key for the 2012 election, which we're going to get into next time. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys did, again, hit the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, and thank you to Joshua Perez and Spiffy Diameter for joining the channel. You guys should also join the channel, and yes, thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.